forgotten and disabused and blah, blah, blah. I don't care when you're a dick. Hello, and welcome to the series we haven't named, which is the monthly Aldra Readathon.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm already looking forward to editing this. It's my birthday. Happy birthday to me.
Cheers.
Yeah. We're drinking some French 75s, which is a gin cocktail. Actually, originally a cognac cocktail, but here we are. Also, just below shot, there is an entire cake, which we're eating in between for shots. We are today looking at the book, which Olivia was you, wasn't it?
I picked 3 and you picked from the 3. So
that's right. So we picked it. We picked Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and we're going to talk about it now. After this month, we spent a whole month reading it.
Oh, 234 pages.
I'm going to start just right now with the same opinion that every teenager ever has had. It sucked. I'm not wrong.
No, it was terrible. It was so boring.
I hated this book. I didn't finish it. I DNF'd it. I don't think I've DNF'd a book in a long time.
How far did you get for it?
I got to page... I think I only just got halfway. I got halfway and I got bored. I was bored for a long time. It is a book of a teenager being teenagery, who's clearly repressing some very serious emotional trauma and then just doesn't deal with it, and stuff happens, and his internal narrative is annoying.
Yep.
I hated it. That's me.
Doesn't really change.
That's all I'm going to say.
After where you stopped?
Thanks for watching. See you next time. Well, Olivia did actually finish the book.
Yes.
So, Olivia, spoil... Well, we'll do that in a little bit.
Right. It felt more like a 700-page book than a 230-page
It took a long time.
book.
We'll do some spoilers in a little bit, but just, I mean, at the outset, what is it? It's a book.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. Nothing happens.
It's 48, 72 hours in New York. It's...
Oh, really?
Nothing happens. Yeah, well, it starts on the Friday, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
When he's on his way back from the sport competition, because he leaves the equipment on the subway, remember?
Actually, fencing.
Sorry, I should have remembered that one.
I was the captain of my fencing team at university.
So that's the
president.
Friday.
Both. I was both positions. Even though I was one of the worst players.
You weren't.
I was.
Were you?
On the team. On the team that went to away matches, I was, I think, the worst, yeah.
But not out of everybody.
But I was still technically the captain, but I was the worst. Not that everybody, including little baby trainees.
You're being a bit harsh on yourself.
No, I wasn't very good. I'm aware of that. I still liked it. I had a great time.
Okay. At least you went to the tournaments. But anyway,
I did.
This is going off.
Yeah, I went to tournaments, I participated, and I sucked, but it was great. I'm proud of myself. I had a great time. I have no qualms. Remember that competition I went to and I lost against an Olympian?
Oh yeah, but that wasn't a university one. That was a local
got destroyed.
one.
I got one hit.
He was an Olympian.
It was a woman.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, she was part of the British team. Well, she was a former member of the British Olympian team. We're getting sidetracked. But she hit me 14 times. I hit her once. She was a lightning blur. It was amazing. I finished second to last. It was great. I didn't finish last. Catch in the Rye.
That's this twat.
Yeah, just me.
So Friday day, he left the fencing equipment on the subway, which was why they ended up going back to school early.
Yes. What a sad thing to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense why he's blamed and the teacher's not blamed. But anyway.
I only watched the teacher. There's no teacher.
You were telling me that these... Right, okay, so that's one of my big problems with this book.
This is the 40s.
Okay, fine. But all these teenagers just go off for this competition. I find that difficult to swallow, but given this book, fine. Goes back to school. Really weirdly, it's implied, I didn't really understand, does he leave the campus or does this person live on campus that he went to see one of his teachers?
Yeah, he lives nearby.
And then this is where I kind of got confused. A lot happens in this short space of time. He then goes back to school, has this entire evening...
Yep. With his roommate and then his, neighbour person who stinks and is covered in pimples.
They get a bus to go and watch a movie, right? They then get there, find out that the movie that's playing the other two have seen, so they only have burgers before heading back to school.
Yeah.
And then this whole night just carries on. It's like this night's just never ending.
He just kind of skips it, yeah.
And it seems to be a reoccurring pattern throughout this book. He has... no consideration for anyone that's trying to sleep. He's more than happy to just wake people up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's implied that it is the middle of the night when he goes in and wakes that other guy up. He's like, oh, can I sleep in your roommate's bed because he's not here?
Yeah.
Then leaves.
Yep, forever.
Spends the first night, so the Friday night in New York. Then spends the Saturday...
Spoilers.
Wait, or does he leave on the Saturday morning?
I think he leaves Saturday morning.
Because he spends...
Yeah, that whole night just lasted a really long time.
Yeah, it was a big chunk of the book. Saturday night he spends in the hotel.
35%, yeah.
Yeah, it was a very long... It really dragged it out.
Yes, it did.
And then the Sunday night he also spends in New York.
Yeah.
And then the Monday is when the book finishes. So it takes place over a really short space of time.
It's just him talking.
But nothing happens.
It's just things that happen, normal things, and the whole time... If you ever... I mean, I know I'm saying... If you've ever seen this, it's like... trying to watch, trying to explain Citizen Kane by saying, "Have you ever seen this modern movie?" Because this is a book that did it first. Have you ever seen Family Guy and that stupid reoccurring gag of the guy going, "He's a phony! He's a big fat phony!" That's just from this book. That's making a parody of Catcher in the Rye. All he says, everyone's a phony. This guy's a phony. This guy's a phony. He's a phony. Holden Caulfield is nothing but a phony all the way through. He has no personality, no interests, except just, like, being a commentator on society.
Yeah,
no
but he's
value.
16, 17?
There was a great... Yeah, he's like 17.
He has all his opinions as if he's an adult.
But they're all been formulated from nothing.
But then, I don't know if I
hate movies, has gone to the movies 1,000 times. Anyone who goes to the movies is a phony. What the
There's one bit, really near the end, where he kind of like implies that mentally he's a lot older than he is.
Jesus.
He says something about like being 40 or 50 or something. It was really close to the end.
No, he's more like 12.
It's here. It played that same song about 50 years ago when I was a little kid. And it's like that just sums him up perfectly. Yeah. That he has this idea that he's so much older and so much wiser and likes to act
that's a good line.
older than he is.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But no, you're not. We know that unless something really weird is going on in this
I'm
world...
27. I'm held back again and again.
Yeah, you're a 16, 17-year-old in school.
Touching on that, another problem is the base problem of Holden Caulfield, which is he is exceptionally wealthy, where his family is. He is a rich kid from an apartment in Manhattan sent to a slew of private schools. He is basically the stereotype kid who gets kicked out of every private school in the world and bounces around and around because he's too much of a douchebag to stay in one school. He's just some rich little tosser. At one point, someone's like, "Hey, you want to buy a prostitute?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll hire a prostitute, I guess." And then the prostitute comes and he gets really depressed. And he's like, "Oh, I don't want to hire this. I don't want this prostitute." And he like makes up a stupid story. And he's like, "Oh, I've had back surgery. Oh, clavicle surgery is what he says." And then he's like, this is actually where I stopped. I stopped at the end of this paragraph. This chapter, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, the chapter after. When
Did you get the bit where they're asking for the money?
Yeah, that bit. I chucked when they beat him up for it, yeah. And he's like, I just don't want... I don't want to... I don't want to do this anymore. Here's some money. And then they stiff it. He pays, and then they come back asking for more money because that's what's going to happen if you're going to hire a prostitute in a New York lobby elevator. And the guy who's basically beating him up says, "Come on, you got some more money, stupid rich kid like you." And that's the first time you have an external realization in the book, like a textual explanation of his wealth. I mean, obviously the rest of it is implied. He goes to a private school. He's surrounded by wealth. Yeah. He's a fencing team, for God's sake.
To his apartment, and that touches on it.
It's the first time,
because it touches on the fact that it's obviously quite a nice apartment, and that they have what seems to be a live-in maid.
Of course they do. Of course they do. I didn't read this far.
Yeah, and so you kind of get this idea that, and also the apartment has constant staff on site.
Oh my God!
That do the lift for you. It's like an old style lift that, and like they go in and they press all the buttons. And
what a douchebag.
So yeah, they establish that it's a nice apartment. The dad's a lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Well, it stems from you touched on it a lot more. His brother died, and that's what's
so obviously spoilers.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: his brother died at a young age.
Yeah.
Like 10. What did he die of?
His
illness?
brother was younger than him.
Cancer.
So,
yeah, much younger. His kid brother died, and he's clearly suffering from severe PTSD, and the character is reacting to that by acting out, right? This is like the every story ever of a teenager acting out because of some trauma.
Yeah,
except it's told from the teenager's perspective.
It doesn't
in his narrative
that he really didn't cope with it when his brother died.
Yeah, obviously.
Because it even says he didn't go to his brother's funeral. I had to go to the hospital and all after I hurt my hand. And it's saying that was when the funeral
because he punched the wall, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of implying
he talked about that, yeah.
But no one cared enough to deal with it. They all went to the funeral. They occasionally took him to his brother's grave, and they keep sending him to all these different schools.
Yeah,
no one is
stereotypical rich boy
and
problem.
Thinking, wait, there's more to this. He's acting out. He's upset. He's not coping.
And I understand that we're supposed to care. Yes. We're supposed to feel for this character. I mean, what a great name, Holden Caulfield. Wonderful name. I know we're supposed to feel significant emotion for this person, and we're meant to feel as though that he's been abused by life, which he has been.
Yes.
The problem is that he is so fundamentally unlikable, so fundamentally distressingly irritating, that I don't give a shit what happens to him. And I know that's kind of the point, I know the overall Salinger's point is that this generation that is growing up is becoming a bit of a lost generation. They're too young to have seen wars, and they're going to be too old to really experience things that occur in the future, and they're kind of this vacant, oh, I'm just here kind of generation, forgotten and disabused and blah, blah, blah. I don't care when you're a dick.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with this. The entire book is basically his inner monologue.
Oh, God, the monologue, and he's such an asshole about everything.
And if you don't like the person, if you're reading 200 pages and someone's in a monologue, you have to like them.
It just went on and on and on.
It
nothing
just
to say.
doesn't stop. No,
nothing
past the point that you've read, it just kind of gets. She gets a bit with the nuns.
No.
So it's the next morning. He goes to a diner. He's sitting there. He's having breakfast, and these two nuns come and sit next to him, and it's just like the way he acts towards them, like he's so much older than he actually is, and they're raising money for charity, and so he gives some money to charity, but then he tries to pay for their breakfast, and they're like, no, you little child, you're not going to pay for our breakfast. And it's
and he buys drinks for those girls at a club.
And he runs out of money, and towards
I
the
got
end
plenty
of
of
the
dough,
book,
he says.
but he doesn't.
No.
He ends up going to his, he has this grand idea that he's got to see his sister, and so he goes to the apartment, and luckily for him his parents are out for the night, and he ends up at the end of it having to ask his sister for money because he's run out of money, and then he gets this idea that
really
he's gonna go west, as he puts it, and he's got to meet
like his brother DB, who's a writer in Hollywood now.
But he's going to hitchhike. He goes to the school, leaves a note asking his sister to meet him at lunchtime so that he can say goodbye to her and give her the money back, and he's going to go west. And it doesn't happen because the sister makes a fuss and basically goes, I'm coming with you, where? And so he goes, well, that can't happen. Let's go have a day out at the park, and then let's all just go home. And then,
day out at the pub.
No, and then they go home, and then it's implied that he then spends quite a while in a mental hospital or psychiatric or whatever before he's then going to go to another private school in September.
And the cycle just repeats.
And the cycle repeats, only this time that he has spent probably like a good 6 months at least receiving some psychiatric help.
Right. Yeah, I think
it's just...
There's an interesting thing. You know, The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
The Big Lebowski takes place in the 90s, early 2000s. 90% of what the dude says is regurgitated, right? And it's a constant theme that he just keeps repeating shit he's heard out of nowhere. Like he's at the Ralph's buying milk at the start, and he's listening to George Bush Sr. talking about like this aggression will not stand, and he says that like an hour later because he's got nothing going on up there, you know? He is a distillation of the culture surrounding him, and that is who he is. He isn't much of a person, and the way he expresses himself is like limited to the experiences he's had from media. Right? And that's emblematic of the generation, and that's what he's trying to say. I think it comes from this. There's a lot of stuff that Holden says which is very clearly stolen from media and from parents. What's the sister's name?
Phoebe.
I'd love to talk to old Phoebe.
Oh, yes. Once he's with her, that's all he calls her, old Phoebe.
And it's dumb. I know, and it's really dumb because that's something that older people say. Old. Right? The old... There's a Whitest Kids You Know skit about finding your husband at a glory hole. I knew I'd find you here at the old glory hole. That's whenever I hear the word old. That's right. Every single time she was talking about old Phoebe, I was always thinking, old glory hole. It's a great sketch. Sidetracked again. But my point is that I feel like this is like a light example of the dude, and I wonder if maybe the dude was inspired in part by... Maybe the dude is Holden 30 years later.
Okay,
right?
That kind of touched on, you haven't read the bit, but at the end he goes to see one of his older school teachers from another school, and it's implied that this teacher actually knows his parents, and there's a bit more of a relationship there, and this teacher gives him this long talk basically saying, I'm worried about you, you kind of need to get your head straight, something's gonna happen, something bad's gonna happen to you at some point, but you are actually really intelligent, and trying to say that intelligent people need to learn their limits in a sense. I can't remember to scroll through it and find.
Yeah, it's fine.
I spent too much time on the screen. Go through it and find it. But he's basically saying like, an intelligent person eventually will find their limits, and they will stop trying on the things that don't fit them in terms of their brain. But I feel like that's what he's doing at the moment. Cake face.
Intelligent person trying their limits.
He doesn't know his limits, and so he's trying all these things that don't quite fit, and like you've said, these things that he's heard and these things that aren't him. His teacher is trying to say to him, with time, you're going to kind of almost find your own skin because you are actually intelligent, and you'll learn the limits of your intelligence and how to wear your intelligence. It's a weird bit, but
I know that
you see, yeah.
I know we're talking about the. So I'm going to make a reference to something which is a Snopes concept, which is Seinfeld isn't funny. Look it up. But it's the idea that a modern watcher of Seinfeld doesn't find it funny because they watch it and go, "Well, that's such an old joke." But the joke was made on Seinfeld, right? It's because you missed it when it was original. And I think the problem with this text for me is that a lot of my frustrations of it are to do with basically this is just the savior character who's a genius and brilliant and gorgeous and wonderful, but he's angsty and he's dealing with stuff and he just doesn't know how to deal with things, and he's got this riveting internal monologue, but on the exterior he's this charming, witticism. It's like what Stephen Fry said about the American hero. We can wisecrack left and right and then walks away into explosions behind him. That's what he wants to be and thinks he is.
Yeah.
But the problem is that that is made by books like this.
It's very interesting.
I'm looking at this 80 years on.
Yeah, but it doesn't work with modern times.
Wow, this book is old.
One of my biggest problems with this, and I think that this is time, like it just shows its age, is that no one's treating him like a 16, 17-year-old.
Indeed.
And there's a couple of times where bartenders will say, "How old are you?"
Yeah.
But he's still able to get alcohol. Everyone still lets him in. He's able to pay for a hotel for the night. Everyone treats him like
he's tall and good looking.
An adult. And that really irritated me. That
he's
no
tall,
one's treating him like a child because he is a child. But then one bit that I really like, I guess, and that's what I'm saying, it doesn't show that it hasn't stood the test of time well. But one thing I do like is, and I could be interpreting this wrong, is he gets really, really drunk, and he even acknowledges that he's drunk. But then he carries on. He doesn't go to sleep. That is when he then.
He says, I can handle my drink really well.
Like
he says that a few times. I hate that concept.
But he does at least acknowledge it. But he then doesn't process because he then stays awake for multiple hours after getting drunk, but he starts to feel unwell. He starts to say, "Oh, I've got a headache. I've got a really bad headache. I'm tired. I feel a bit sick," right? And he gets given some coffee and he drinks some coffee and he does have a little bit to eat and he's still saying he doesn't feel well. And through a sequence of events, he ends up not really sleeping that night. He has maybe a couple of hours on a bench. And the next morning, he's saying, "Oh, he still feels really sick." And he then says he's got diarrhea and he's talking about it, but he's showing really clear signs of a really bad hangover. Yeah. But he doesn't realise it. He thinks that there's something where he's like, "Oh, I don't really mind the diarrhea," but "Oh, I feel a bit sick." But he's too young. He's too immature. He doesn't realise that actually,
moron,
no, you got really, really drunk. He acknowledges he's barely eaten anything as well. But it's a great way of showing, I think, that you're just a child. You don't actually realise what's going on with your body, whereas an adult would be like, "Wait,
he just
I've
truly
got a
has
hangover."
No comprehension of things that are going on around him.
And I just kind of like
agreed.
that, I guess. I didn't like the book, but I like that.
I think fundamentally my problem with this book is I think both I'm not a fan of the character, I'm not a fan of that story. I mean, there's a lot of I think there's more films than books about this, at least in popular media. You get Rebel Without a Cause, the one with Marlon Brando in it that I don't remember, and maybe Easy Rider as well. You get like these 50s, 60s movies that really touch on the concepts that I think began to be introduced with J.D. Salinger. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because we're going to start getting some socio-philosophical concepts, but the idea of a teenager starts with this book, and that's what makes it significant. The idea that a teenager is this distinct entity doesn't exist until this text in popular media, and arguably doesn't exist in society until around the 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
But the war and the Depression does change that. And again, we're doing American-focused stuff, but that's because what happens in Europe and Asia is awful from the 30s to the 50s. So just forget that period of the world exists. Like China, all of Asia, Europe, no, don't forget about it. really we're just talking about America, because that informs popular culture. So the concept of the teenager comes from this book, mostly. There's actually other texts that inform it, but mostly.
He doesn't act like a teenager, but he does also acknowledge
So
at times that
what
he's
I mean by teenager is that kind of angst, right? The idea of teenage angst. I mean that line in Rebel Battle, you know, what are you rebelling against anyway? What do you got? Though actually the representation of that line is actually better in my head than how it is actually. I think of it as, what do you got? Right? But it's actually a dance, and everyone's going crazy and dancing, and this guy's like, hey, what are you rebelling against? In that kind of ridiculous 50s style. What are you rebelling against anyway? And the guy's like dancing with the girl, and as he passes, he goes, what do you got? And that line is just it's so offhand, but it's a famous line because that's what Holden is.
Yeah, he's
What are you rebelling against?
Life.
What have you got?
Did you get to
Anything.
the bit with...
Everything.
Oh, is it with... Did you get to the bit where he takes... Is it Sally on a date? He takes the girls to the theatre.
No, a date.
Right, it might be Sally. There's a couple of girls.
Sure.
So he takes Sally to a date to the theatre, and he gets really carried away with himself, and he's saying back, let's run away. I've got a bit of money, and I think rather than going west
has
this
no
time,
money,
he
yeah.
wants to go north. And he goes, let's go north, and I think he mentions a couple of states,
Right.
and he's like, I'll get a job, it'll be great, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, what are you
Why would
on
I
about?
do that?
Yeah, she's just like, whoa, right, you crazy person. And then she even says to him, why can't we just do that? If that's going to happen, why can't we do that years down the line? Carry on with school, go to college,
Yeah.
and we'll go and do that. And he's like, no, we can't do that. Because once I've finished school and once I've been to college, I'll have to have a job and I'll have to wear a suit and I'll have to go to work every day. And he starts listing all these grown-up things.
Yeah.
And it's like this kind of like, he wants to run away now while he's a teenager so that he doesn't have to do these things. But for some reason, he can't make this connection that once you're an adult, and you've been to school, and if you've gone to university, you could still go and have, I mean, he talks about like a cabin or something.
Yeah, you can still do that.
But he can't make that connection.
Well, there's
For
that
him,
there's that
it's
link with his
like-
parents, right? He sees
Yeah.
his parents trapped in that
Well,
concept.
yeah, his dad's a lawyer, and
Yeah. See, I never even met the parents, so I've already formulated these ideas.
You vaguely meet the mum,
Yeah.
because the mum has a conversation with Phoebe through a door. Yeah,
That's great.
But I just thought that was quite an interesting bit, that for him, this freedom, in a sense, only exists while he's a teenager.
Yeah.
But the minute he's graduated, it's like, well, I haven't got the freedom. I can't go and do the things that I
Yeah.
want. And he's rebelling against that while he has a chance to rebel against it, I guess.
I get that. That's a good point. The idea that rebelling when he thinks he can,
Yeah.
right? And that's informed by popular media. And we do have to look at it from retrospect, with hindsight, that now, I mean, we're in the best position of all of humanity. You know, we want to know how to feel about something, or we want to know how we should feel about something, or what a healthy way to feel about something is. We have a wealth of media, both books and TV and movies, of characters experiencing pretty much the exact same thing that you can experience at pretty much every moment of existence. And you can go, oh yeah, there's that guy. Oh, they acted like this. Oh, that's interesting because I feel X, and you can contrast, right? But going back, like before TV becomes a popular invention and stuff like that, it is really tricky, and you do actually struggle with, I know it sounds strange, but without TV and movies, it's hard to understand how other people feel the same emotions you do. It reminds me of a line from History Boys, where they're reading etc. The teacher character he's just been fired, and he has a little private tutor session, and they're talking about the Drummer Hodge by Tom Hardy. Beautiful bit in the movie, and play. And they're talking about the idea of the poem and how the words are powerful, blah, 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 blah. And there are certain words that seem to kind of reach out to you in the best moments in reading. And he kind of extrapolates it to literature, because he's like an English teacher. The best moments in reading are when you read something that you feel as if was unique to you. A thought or emotion that only you, to your knowledge, only you will have experienced. Even though you wouldn't say this is a unique thought, you feel as if this was unique to you. And there it is, on the paper, in front of you, written down by a man who most likely is long dead, who felt the exact thing you're thinking. And it's as if a hand, it's a beautiful moment, a bit of a hand is reaching out to you, and you just have to grasp it to truly realise your connection with the world, right? I'm extrapolating from that.
Yeah.
But
That's nice.
that concept, exactly, that's what reading is, that's what's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. But without being wide read, without popular media, it's tricky to be in that situation.
Yeah.
You feel as if you're alone.
What does he have? He
has
refuses
nothing.
to watch movies
He
because
refuses-
apparently he's better than
Except
them.
he's watched a million movies,
Yeah.
but whatever.
But what does he have? He doesn't have the internet. He doesn't have a huge wealth of teenage-focused TV shows.
So this is the thing.
He
So from a
doesn't-
modern
yeah.
perspective, his
Yeah.
experience is laughable, right?
Yeah.
But then, from his perspective, I'm sure, and maybe from a perspective of readers, of contemporary readers of this text, who read it at the time of its publication, maybe felt similar, right? But from my perspective, and maybe people of my own contemporary time, they read it and go,
yeah,
Seinfeld isn't funny, right?
But,
it's the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't stand up well.
It doesn't stand up well. That's my point.
School text.
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
my.
relate to it
It's
anymore.
because it was made a school text in the 70s, and America just doesn't change.
Well, they
that.
need to update their curriculum.
Yeah, that's my
Because it doesn't
takeaway.
stand
I don't think it stands up. I think it's not badly written. I think Salinger has some really wonderful turns of phrases here and there, but their overstreaming consciousness is just so artificial, and it just makes me mad. And frankly, I don't think. You know how characters have distinctive names, and then you associate distinctive names. Again, I'm referring to that Stephen Fry thing we listened to, how you say, oh, this guy's a Blackadder. You say if someone's like a Blackadder, you know exactly what they're like. Characters with distinctive names, authors are trying to create that. He's such a Holden, right? And the US, that is a thing. You say someone's a Holden, they have that kind of feeling. I say The Expanse has supplanted that, so boom, main character of The Expanse is James Holden. He's just like a paladin in D&D, frankly. He's just a good, fundamentally good person and just doing constantly good things. He's Holden to me, not this douchebag.
Yeah, you kind of forget his name, to be honest. When you're reading it, his name
I
just
only
has
remember
no
it because Holden in The Expanse.
Right.
But pass, push it away. I'm done. I think I would like to finish it, but I don't think I had a month.
Spoiled it in places.
I don't mind.
But...
I struggled really badly with finishing it. I found myself scrolling through Reddit, and then Olivia would say, "Shouldn't you be reading?" And I'll go, "Yeah, I should."
It doesn't get any better, honestly. From where
That's not a good
sorry.
review.
No, it doesn't. From where
It doesn't get any better.
You're on the Saturday night now. You're at the Sunday morning. Because they come
Sunday
along
morning they beat
asking
him
for
up.
the money.
It was like 3 and 4 in the morning.
Yeah, it just gets worse. You have the bit that I said about with the nuns. He tries to act like an adult, in my opinion, and he books this date with, I'm pretty sure it was Sally, buys the theatre tickets. The whole time he just has no regard for anyone. The time of day, he just thinks that he can call people up and they can be at his disposal.
Piss
he
off.
then goes out and he has this entire night out. And he's really rude to Sally. They kind of leave on bad terms. But then
This is the girl that his roommate was dating, right?
No, that's another one. I think Jay.
Yeah, and he just harped on about her for ages, and then he never mentions her
calls
again.
her. He keeps mentioning, "Oh, I want to call Jane. I want to call Jane. I wonder if she's home for the holidays yet." Doesn't call
He
Jane.
does. What?
Yeah,
Okay.
but doesn't. But he then does
What a
call
douchebag.
Sally again at another point. But calls Sally what's implied like quite late in the evening or in the middle of the night, and the grandmother picks up the phone and he's quite rude, and it's just this reoccurring theme with him. Like even when he calls the school teacher whose house he goes round, that time of day means nothing to him. He thinks that it's acceptable to just call people at 1 a.m. and wake them up.
How about
how
about when he's in the cab?
Yeah.
He gets multiple cabs, and every single time he's in the cab, he's like, "Would you like to come have a drink with me? I got plenty of dough. Would you like to come and have a drink with me?"
doing that.
And their reaction is like, "What?
You
No.
teenager? No, thank
Get out of
you.
my car."
Yeah.
No, but even if it wasn't a teenager, no cab driver's gonna be like, "What?
Yeah.
No, get out."
Yeah, no, he keeps doing that, and
Because he's lonely.
I guess, like, there's one bit, he goes to a bar, he's sitting there on his own, and I think it was a woman playing the piano or something, and he says to the waiter, "Hey, can you ask her if she wants to come and have a drink with me?" And then he makes a point of, like, the message doesn't get passed along.
No,
and,
that
like,
was Ernie. That was Ernie.
Was it Ernie?
Or maybe he does it twice. Who
Oh,
knows?
I don't know, because he says, like, how the message never gets passed on. Well, of course your messages never get passed on. You're a teenager. What waiter is going to go up to the piano
he goes to
player
this
and
club.
say that?
He goes to this
Like,
club that he knows that his brother took him to when his brother was a relative socialite in the area. And it's this guy, he's an African-American piano player, he's well known, it's his club, and he goes there, and he keeps remarking, like, about the fact that he's African-American. I'm like, okay, hallmark of its time.
Yeah, it does that a couple of other times.
Yeah, you're
where it
just like,
mentions
okay,
race
okay.
unnecessarily.
And then, he's playing piano, and he's like, oh, he's such a phony, he's saying it like he's gonna bow, what a phony would bow, or clap, and these people clapping about it. And he's just the waiter, like, tell Ernie and let me have a drink with me.
No, this is another time.
Oh,
This is a woman the
he does
next
it multiple
time.
times.
I'm pretty
Great.
Sure, unless I'm remembering.
And he goes to the and then Ernie never shows up, and he's like, "Oh, I bet the waiter didn't pass on the message." Waiters like him never pass on the message. What? No, Ernie probably's like, "Hey, this kid wants to have a drink with you," and Ernie's like, "What? No, fuck off. What? I mean, what? I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done."
Well,
I'm done.
did you get something about the suitcase?
No.
The suitcase really annoyed me. He goes into this whole... Sorry.
She hit me with the book.
He goes into this whole inner monologue about suitcases and how suitcases are so important and you can tell so much about a person from their suitcase. And he hates it when people have a cheap suitcase, and one of his roommates at a previous school he went to, they had really cheap suitcases, and he used to store his suitcases, it's implied, like on this rack where everyone could see them, but his roommate was embarrassed, so the roommate hid his suitcases like under his bed or in a cupboard or something, and how he didn't like it really because this guy had cheap suitcases, but actually he was quite a decent guy even though his suitcases let him down. And then he says at one point he's going to take his suitcases off of this rack and store them in his room like his roommate does, but his roommate says no, don't do that or something, and he works out in his brain it's because the roommate has been pretending that the suitcases belong to him so that he can show off. And it's like, it's just completely just ridiculous, because first your suitcase, the quality of yours,
What?
No, it's ridiculous. It's like, first the quality of your suitcases apparently say something about your social status and say a lot about your personality, and he judges you by that. But then he also thinks that everyone thinks like him and that this roommate is thinking like him and is using Holden's suitcases to say, hey, look at me, I'm great, I've got these designer suitcases.
What?
It's completely insane. And I was just like, I just hate you as a character. Why are you judging anyone by a piece of plastic or a piece of material that they put their belongings in to get to school?
Christ.
Like, it's just, it sums up his personality perfectly. I just hate it. But you haven't even learned about the name.
Oh, yeah! Why is it called Catcher in the Rye?
I have...
What are we catching?
I have double tabbed this, so I know how to...
Okay.
Right, so he... It's just absolutely ridiculous. So, on the Sunday night, he sneaks into his parents' apartment because he wants to see his sister. Has this whole conversation with his sister, and his sister gets a bit kind of annoyed at him about, you've got kicked out of school again, haven't you, Holden? Dad's gonna be really cross with you, Holden. And has this, like, for a child, she has quite a philosophical conversation with him about, what is it in you? Do you have anything in your life, Holden, that you actually like, that you enjoy? This, and he just can't come up with anything. He comes up with his dead brother and the moment that he's currently in. And the sister is like, no, that's not good enough. Like, what do you want to be, Holden? What do you want from life? Yeah. And then he says, you know that song, if a body catch a body coming through the rye, I'd like, and then the sister cuts him off and says, oh, that's wrong, and it's a line from a Robert Burns poem. Right. If a body meet a body coming through the rye, and then he gives this long, it's like a whole paragraph here about it, and that's him, that's what he wants to be. I mean, if you want to read it, you'll read it faster than me.
I thought it was if a body catch a body, I said. Anyway, I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye and all. I keep saying and all. I hate that. Thousands of little kids and nobody's around. Nobody big, I mean, except me. And I'm the big one. Yeah, you're not a kid. And I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. What? Yeah. I mean, if you're running and they don't look where they're going, I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I do all day. I'd just be the catcher in the rye and all. I know it's crazy. That's the only thing I really like to be. I know it's crazy. So in other words, he has a savior complex. Yeah, he desperately wants to be the chosen Jesus boy.
The sister says to him, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a lawyer like Dad? Do you want to be... she makes another suggestion. I can't remember what it is. But no, he wants to be the catcher in the rye. So that
okay, I guess that makes sense. I've heard the poem, right? Okay, so essentially he's got a massive savior complex and he wants to be special. Well, that was Catcher in the Rye. I would rate it maybe 2.5 out of 10. Rate it if you feel like you want to learn what it likes to be a teenager in the late 40s.
Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time.
Better things to read. The only reason to read this, and the reason why I originally wanted to read this, is the Penguin 100 books to read before you die list. This is on it. I can now tick it off that list. Mission accomplished.
I will finish it,
but boring. Don't like the character.
Book suggestion?
No, don't waste your time reading it. That's my suggestion. It's boring. It felt like
JD Salinger, go back to hosting celebrities. Do they know things? What do they know? Let's find out.
Oh, I forgot a point.
That was from BoJack Horseman. Remember?
Yeah.
J.D. Salinger is the character, but he's not actually him because he's actually dead.
Okay.
They just bring him back and he's like, no, I wasn't dead, I was just hiding. And then he becomes the new host of Celebrities. Do they know things? What do they know? Let's find out.
Yeah.
Which is just the stupidest point and so insulting to a famously secretive author's. He was very secretive in his life. He didn't want people to. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. It's about the author, so.
But of course, it's great. You should watch it. Yes, go.
This would be better as a film.
But
and it really annoys me that apparently he didn't want it to be made into a film because he didn't think that anyone of 16 or 17 years of age had what he called an X factor, before the show I guess, but you know, that could pull off the inner monologue of this character, and didn't like the idea that for it to be a film it would have to have a, oh my god, I've forgotten the word, and when dialogues, when
I was feeling very hungry that day.
Yeah, what's the word?
She had legs that all the way up to her torso.
There's a word for it where it's being narrated by the main character, basically. Right, just write this on the bottom of the screen because I've forgotten. But there's a word for this where it's being narrated by the main character and you get their inner monologue. And he didn't think.
Over?
No, there's a particular word.
Over. Monologue, you know.
For this.
Monologue, you know what
internal monologue.
No, but it's like it's a dubbing or a. What's the word in a movie where the narration happens?
Sorry, I can't search what something is about.
Yeah, I can gather that. I was really terrible.
Right, skip this point. Just edit this out. Move on with our existence.
Oh, no, I know how to Google this.
What is JD in Scrubs?
Yes, but also the alternate theatrical cut of Blade Runner. If you haven't seen Blade Runner, you should. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is to record. Oh, you clicked re-record. Okay,
I did, yeah. But Blade Runner also has a theatrical cut where they were like, I don't think the audience. I'm impersonating the studio executives. I don't think the audience is gonna get this. So every 14 seconds, have Harrison Ford narrate some narration.
I said narration.
No way, that's not right.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It matters.
My point is, I actually think this would be better as a film, and it would have an almost Ferris Bueller's Day Off kind of vibe about it,
That'd be
but
tight.
with a constant narration going. I think that would work really well. But no, the author decided that his book was too good to be made into a film, and so he wasn't going to let anyone have the rights for it, and apparently his estate has followed through on that and will not give anyone the rights for it.
I think it's just narration, Olivia.
Well, narration it is.
Well, this was anticlimactic.
Right.
But yeah, doesn't that piss you off?
And that really annoys me because this was a really boring book to read. But
J.D. Salinger just spinning in his grave.
But if you'd had this as a film, you could have had this character walking through New York. You could have done a lot with the scenery, and you could have had his inner monologue playing. And I think it actually would have been a very interesting 2 hours. But it was a very long 230 pages. I enjoyed Bleak House more, and that's saying something.
And that was bleak.
Through that either, but the point is this felt longer.
2.5 out of 10. And now for next week's book.
Week.
And now for next month's book, where if you don't know, we every month we take turns to pick a new book to review. We're moving away from fiction to non-fiction.
Oh, because you've been wanting me to read this for ages.
We're going to read Anthony Bourdain, rest his soul's Kitchen Confidential. This is a fantastic text. It is essentially an autobiography of Anthony Bourdain, the celebrity chef, but also just kind of thoughts and opinions about life and cooking. Anthony Bourdain died to suicide a few years back, hanged himself in Europe whilst filming some of his TV series. Tragedy, real tragedy. He suffered from depression all his life. But the really beautiful thing about this book is this is an autobiography written by someone who is actually a writer. He has independently published numerous novels that have done very well. He is a writer, just as a person. God damn, I knocked my fork off. And so this book is not ghost-written. It is not, oh, this guy did this. It's him writing it. And even better, this book is not just the book, it's the re-release of the book of 10 years after he published it, where Anthony Bourdain goes through it and highlights things and goes, this is bullshit, I don't believe this anymore. Which is just freaking amazing. And just like, sadly, on my headstone, the chef knows, he circled chef knows, the chef knows, sadly, on my headstone, which I think is great. Mussels are fine, but not in an Irish pub. And just random notes all over the place, everywhere. Fantastic text. We have to read it.
Yeah, you've been wanting me to read it for ages.
It's so
good.
good.
Reason.
If you're interested in food, you're interested in cooking. I've obviously read it already.
Are you going to reread it?
I'm going to reread it, yeah.
Cool.
If
What is that?
Yeah.
Just a scribble.
That's
over
that's
the
the one I just said.
Yeah,
Chef knows, yeah.
it's just great.
He's great. He's what he did is he was given his book, because obviously it was 10 years later. He was given it and he was told to just reread it and then just write notes, and that's what he did, and then they just copied it to make it the new book. And it's filled, and some of the notes are really good. Some of them are like pages long. There's one bit talking about like mussels in the kitchen and when you would eat this and that. It's so good. If you're interested in being a cook, or you're interested in food, or what it's like to be in a kitchen, because we're big food people, we're big cooks. I mean, I'm a huge cook. I cook everything. We cook everything we eat. Everything.
Yeah.
This box cake is the closest thing I've come to pre-prepared meals in a long time.
Yeah.
And cook everything. But it's just such a beautiful text. I almost cried a couple times. Weirdly.
I look forward to it.
Even though I wouldn't say there's anything especially sad. If I say the words, anyone who's read it, if I say the words, feed the bitch, you know exactly what I'm saying. Instantly. It's brilliant.
Cool.
Seek mental health if you're suffering from it.
Well, he was depressed.
Yep.
So now
that
let's
was my
read-
link. You know, that was my link. That was my link. I was trying to think what's a good link here, and I was like, ooh, I've been wanting to reread this. So, boom.
Cool.
Thank you for watching. We're gonna read this. Thoughts?
And
Don't read that.
Read this.
We're gonna go have a steak dinner for my birthday with some more champagne. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, you finished yours.
Uh,
Never mind.
clink.
Cheers.
New glasses. Oh, fancy. So we're off to have a birthday. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you do, of course, leave a like and a comment below. Fledgling channel, fledgling stuff. Obviously, people are not super interested in books when I make the gaming content, but I'm enjoying doing this, so I don't care if 5 people watched every video. I'm gonna do it. Watch us have like 900,000 subscribers in 2 years' time, and people watching this video like in retrospect and being like, "Oh, look at this! If only you'd known." I love when you get that. So let this
Yeah.
be that video. Let's go. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. We haven't got up an outro for this.
Nope, that's about it.
Alright, bye.